Hi there, I'm Henrietta. I have been the Biological Recording Co-ordinator at TVERC for getting on for a year now. Started back in November last year. And my role is to liaise with local groups and recorders to see if we can increase the recording coverage across Berkshire and Oxfordshire. So I just want to go through very quickly kind of our highlights of the year, really, what we've been up to. So back in March, we reached 4 million species records in our database, which is fantastic. I should say we're now actually about 4.2 million. And that's testament to all of you, really. We have some records that are from ecological consultants and professional surveyors, but the vast majority of our records come from people like you, local recorders, people doing it in their spare time. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for all you do. I should also do a shout out to our fantastic data management volunteers who painstakingly go through and verify and validate our records to make sure they're accurate. So that really helps to sort of streamline the process and make sure the records get into our database quickly. This is just to give you an idea of the number of records we're dealing with each year. So you can see in last year we imported well over 600,000 records, which is an incredible amount, really. And we're about 300,000 for the year so far. And then sort of on the flip side, this is by when the species were actually seen. So you can see there's a slight sort of lockdown effect there, that the records are slightly lower in the last couple of years, but of course there is a lag between when records are observed, when they're submitted, and then finally when they're processed and imported into the database. So I don't think there's anything too much to worry about there. So what do we do with your data? Well, we make it available to anyone that needs it, really. So making sure that people making local environmental decisions do so with the best available data and make sure those decisions are data driven. So we make it available to our data partners, local authorities, for example, anyone that we have data agreements with, so that's other organisations or local groups. And then a big chunk of our work is data searches. So this just shows you the sort of number of data searches that we're dealing with per year. And actually the last financial year we broke the 1,000 data search barrier, so that's fantastic, and that's thanks to some automation processes in our brilliant team of staff that produce those data searches. Why do people come to us for our data? Well, it's mostly for planning applications and development, and those are mostly sort of ecological consultants. But there are other reasons as well. Landowners want to know what's on their land. For education and research, I should say. I know we've got a few students listening in. So if you are keen to do anything with our data, please do talk to us. We have several kind of options available, whether it's dissertations or small projects, or we do micro internships with Oxford University, which you'll hear a bit more about later from Bryony. And anyone can access our data due to the costs of processing and exporting the data, and generally upkeeping the database. We do charge for our data, but there are instances where we waive the fee depending on who you are and what you're using the data for. So the best thing to do is go to our website and request a data search. And you can also have a look at the data cost calculator, so you'll know in advance if you are likely to be charged for the data. If you have any questions, as always, do just drop us an email. So that's really sort of how we supply your data. So it's we make it available, but we do actually do quite a bit of interpreting as well. So whether that's helping out neighbourhood parishes with neighbourhood plans, mapping out green corridors, that sort of thing. But we also take on project work, and thanks to expanding our team again, we do have capacity now to take on more project work. And I just wanted to take you through a couple of projects that we're working on at the moment. So Nicolette has been working on this Oxfordshire canopy cover project, which is looking at mapping out canopy cover across Oxfordshire with Oxfordshire County Council. And she's mapped out canopy cover, and you can see here the darker green areas are areas of higher canopy cover. And the end result will be maps like this, which show areas of in green, areas of higher canopy cover, and whereas the orange and red areas are have less canopy cover. So you can see there the greener areas, presumably that's places like Whiteton Woods, orange and red, kind of West Oxfordshire, more arable areas. Now, I should say, of course, we're not suggesting that all these red areas should be planted with trees. We're just we have another project we're involved with called Treescapes, which has a bit more of a guide as to where habitats might be suitable for tree planting. And the idea with this canopy cover project is to give the council an idea of sort of where biodiversity net gain and natural capital investment should occur, and things like carbon sequestration and that sort of thing. I should say I don't have time to talk about Treescapes now, but if you do want to learn more about that project, do chat to myself or Steve. The second project I wanted to talk about was one that Gordon's been working on, which is the North Wessex Downs Heathland project. And he's basically been mapping areas of heathland, earmarking areas that might be good for heathland restoration. And so he's looked at, well, firstly, areas where heathland has been mapped, so through other record centres and other organisations. They do have some data on where heathland is, but he's also looked at using plant indicators and other species indicators, which suggests that, you know, if that species is present, then that's likely to be indicative of acid grassland or heathland also being present. So this map shows you the plant species. So where you've got the redder the areas, the darker the colour, the more likely there is to be acid grassland and heathland there. And I know he's also done this using adders as well as an indicator species. And the other thing that Gordon's been looking at is survey effort, and this is something that we're keen to expand beyond this project, to look at survey effort across Oxfordshire and Berkshire. So what Gordon's done here is he's looked at the number of days in which records have been submitted in a square. So these bluer colours here, that's areas where there have been records submitted over several days, so implying that those squares have been visited more often than these ones down here, for example. And this is something that really needs to be borne in mind when we look at these sort of data. So obviously, if you've got down here the fact that there aren't many records of, say, water voles, doesn't mean that there aren't water voles there, it just means that people aren't there to actually record them. So that's something to bear in mind. And it's something we're keen to look at, as I say, the survey effort sort of spatially, but also over time, and of course through taxa as well. So in fact, at the end of the last spring conference, we did a quick poll to see what people record, and birds, as you see, sort of came out quite high. And that tallies with roughly what we see in our database as well. That birds, flowering plants, and butterflies are the kind of the top taxa by number that we receive in our database. So moving forward, we're also keen to sort of find out why people record. So if I could just sort of ask you quickly, you know, why do you go out recording? What is it that motivates you? Is it that you're conserving species, you're contributing to science, you know, your data, you know that's being used? Is it fun? Well, I hope it's fun, but you know, is it that you like being outside in nature, you like recording? Is it the social aspect? Hopefully today you're meeting like-minded people, and it's that aspect of getting to know other people that have the same interests as you. Is it because you're recording a particularly important or threatened site? Is it under threat of development, and therefore you want to know all the records that are there? Are you just building your own skills, which is obviously very important? Is it for career progression? And finally, competition. Is there a competitive element? I mean, I'll leave that there. Are you a lister? I'm a birder, so I know that there is quite a competitive element to it. And then conversely, what are the barriers to your recording? Why aren't you out there recording more? So is it actually your level of interest that what you're doing now is fine and that'll do you? Absolutely fine. Is it your level of knowledge? Do you feel that you don't have the skills to be able to identify everything? I should say, if that's the case, don't be afraid to go out, take photographs, and you'll have, you know, there's great advice online. People on Twitter and Facebook love to give you their opinions, which is great. But yes, do do send your photos to us, and we can find people who can identify them if we don't know them ourselves. But generally, just have a go. People love it when you ask. Is it free time? If it weren't for our pesky jobs, we'd all be out there recording more. Transport. And I'm particularly interested in how we square that circle between going out and recording biodiversity, which hopefully contributes to its protection, but balancing that against, we want to lower our carbon footprints. So transport is actually, quite a big barrier these days. And also, of course, if you don't have access to a car or other means of transport. Safety. That's something we definitely need to think about as a youngish woman. And I'm a bird ringer, but there are definitely sites that I would think twice about, before going out in the dark on my own. So hopefully I've given you a flavour there of what we've done this year, but also shown you that we want to do more with you. We want to help you record more, and we're really keen to know how we can do that more. So there are some support for recorders sheets, questionnaires, so do fill those out, and I'll send those around as well. But this is all the ways we can help. Do tell us if there are other ways you think we can help us. But we're very happy to lend out equipment and books, come and speak to your groups, talk to you about monitoring, all that sort of thing. And finally, I just wanted to do a quick plug for our Recorders Grant that we do in collaboration with the Trust for Oxfordshire's Environment. So this is a grant specifically for monitoring and recording projects across Oxfordshire and Berkshire. Now, I know historically we've not had many applicants from Berkshire, so do please think about applying. I know there's a bit of money left in the pot for this financial year. The next application deadline is the 9th of January. So your first port of call should be Rachel at TOW on this number here, and she is very helpful, and she will advise you on how to apply, whether to apply. There are other grants available if this one perhaps isn't so suitable, but she should be your first stop really. And with that, thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks so much for attending the conference. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.